greatest sports debate show on the
For the first time since 2016, we have got a Game 7 in the NBA Finals.
championship rings, starring
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. They won the championship ring.
I am loving this feud. Don't you dare shit on this. Don't you dare.
I'm gonna shit on the stipulation of it.
Oh my God, the stipulation is fantastic.
down.
Well, Josh, last week as we kicked off the show, we had some breaking coaching news, and this week it's more of the same, and it's coming out of the same division as it is official. Mike Tomlin has resigned. He has stepped down after 19 seasons as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers on a night where we have so much to talk about. Let's get right into it.
Think about this for a second. 3 of the 4 teams in the AFC North are going to have new head coaches going into the 2026 season. The only team that is going to remain the same is the one everybody expected to make a change. That, of course, being the Cincinnati Bengals.
And honestly, they should at this point. Why not? Let's just refresh in the whole AFC North.
Like, what the hell is going on with the AFC North? I don't get it. But it's important to note the Steelers did not fire Mike Tomlin. So they still retain his rights. So I expect this to be a Sean Payton type of situation where he spends a year as a TV analyst and then the following season he ends up getting traded from Pittsburgh to whoever.
I'll throw 2 scenarios out there. One is, who's to say he doesn't like TV and never returns to coaching? Remember Bill Cowher, that was the situation, and Bill Cowher still at CBS right now. And the other is, I know it's very unlikely, and I doubt both teams would do it, but boy, wouldn't it be fun if the Ravens and the Steelers swapped coaches?
I could never see Tomlin wearing the purple and black, and I could never see Harbaugh wearing the black and gold. No way.
I do think there is a scenario out there where Mike Tomlin does wear the purple and black next season because of Lamar Jackson. It's been reported that Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh had a strenuous relationship there at the end in Baltimore, but it's also been weirdly reported that Lamar Jackson and Mike Tomlin have a very close relationship and that Mike Tomlin would want to coach Lamar Jackson. And that was out even a few weeks ago.
So here's the thing. If you want to hire Mike Tomlin as your head coach, you're not going to be interviewing him. He's going to be interviewing you.
Well, I'll say this. I don't even know if Mike Tomlin has to interview. Especially if it's in Baltimore, I think you just call him and go, Mike, do you want the job? And how much money do you want? You get full autonomy, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I don't think he would jump at the chance to go to the Giants. I think if he does want to go somewhere, it'd be a warmer place. I don't think Miami's the fit for him. I actually think because he was a former defensive backs coach before he went to Pittsburgh, if, let's say, next year, Tampa Bay were to open up, I think that's a spot for him. I don't think Atlanta has the quarterback. And I think Tomlin, after what he went for in Pittsburgh, which last night was just the epitome of the Pittsburgh Steelers season of they really don't have an offensive threat outside of DK Metcalf and Kenneth Gainwell. Their offensive line is bad. The Steelers have been in purgatory now for a decade, you could argue. And that's part of the reason is Tomlin has not gotten the quarterback right. And so I think in his next stop, if there is going to be a next stop, he will absolutely want to have a bona fide quarterback the way Justin Herbert was when Jim Harbaugh got there. And I think Baltimore fits that description. But again, I do agree with you. I think he's going to take a year off.
Yeah. And if he goes to TV, people are going to listen to him because, yes, it faltered in Pittsburgh in the later years. I get it. But still, he knows what he's doing. Like, did you expect a lot of those Steeler teams to end up going 9-8, 10-7?
Well, Josh, I mean, the standard is the standard.
No, I don't disagree with that. But with some of those teams, you're like, how did he get that team to 9-8?
Especially like the Mason Rudolph team, the Kenny Pickett team. Yeah,
that's what I mean.
But I mean, let's be honest. The Steelers, do you know they have not had a lead in the playoffs in the second half in a decade?
Yeah. I think they've lost now 7 straight playoff games.
Yeah. By the way, their best deficit in that 7-ish game span was losing 21-0.
Yeah, I think they've lost most of their playoff games by an average of 21, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Grandizer, I see your question. We're going to get to that in the next topic, by the way. But yeah, I mean, I just think like I said with Baltimore last week, it was time, right? It was time for Mike Tomlin. It's time for John Harbaugh. And it is time for this AFC North to come into 2025 football, which is offensive football. The Chicago Bears resisted offensive football for 40 years of their franchise's existence. And they got an offensive-minded head coach who was the number one coach in the market, and they are now in Super Bowl contention. To me, the Steelers need to pivot that direction, but I do not think they will, because of the reporting by Albert Breer, which came out a couple weeks ago, is to be believed. It does sound like, to me, Rams defensive coordinator Chris Shula, if he wants the job, this job is his. And I don't think the Steelers are going to have a long coaching search. They'll fill the Rooney Rule because they have to, which I don't understand why you force teams to bring in coaches that you have no chance to hire just because of that rule. But they're going to fulfill the rule. And then I believe Chris Shula will be the new head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Most likely. It's crazy that Harbaugh and Tomlin are both gone. It definitely changes what the Steelers-Ravens rivalry is going to look like. Does it change my fandom for it? No, it's still Steelers-Ravens. I'm just going to have to get used to new faces on the sideline for each team. But again, think about this. The Cincinnati Bengals are the only team keeping their head coach in Zach Taylor. That's pathetic.
So I have 2 quick questions for you. Number one, if you're Pittsburgh, I think you do this. I think you trade TJ Watt. I think if I'm Pittsburgh, I try to tank next year. I try to get as close to the number 1 pick as possible, and I try to pick my quarterback for 2027. Do I think they're going to do that? No, I don't. But the other thing is, Josh, as a Browns fan, does this change your way of thinking now as who you want as your new head coach now that the Ravens and Steelers both have openings?
I mean, you know my feeling. I didn't want it to have to hire a new head coach. I wanted to keep Kevin Stefanski. So, and with the Ravens and Steelers both having openings now, it just makes me feel even stronger about that we should have kept Stefanski.
That's interesting because, to be honest with you, I actually think that this makes this division more exciting. I think the division needed a refresh. Again, I like Zach Taylor, but I think he could go too. I think that this division has been so stuck in hard-nosed, cold weather football since 2002, when this division was reformed, that I think this is a good chance now for all 4 of these teams to reset and get into 2025 football, which is more offensive football.
You very well could be right, which that would be a big change for Baltimore because Baltimore has always been, a very defensive-minded team with the likes of Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, Ed Reed, amongst others.
They have pivoted, though, with Lamar Jackson. Pittsburgh has not.
That part is true, yes. Think about this. They had the most expensive defense, and
they still do, and it's not even close.
Yes. And it's not even like the Texans really did anything offensively last night. It was more so Houston's defense.
And they didn't have to. The Texans could have kneeled the ball down and won the game last night.
Yeah. If I'm Pittsburgh, I don't bring Aaron Rodgers back.
Well, no. If Tomlin came back, I did believe Aaron was coming back. Now that Tomlin's not there, I think we did see Aaron Rodgers' last snap last night.
I think Will Howard should get an opportunity. We saw what he could do as a quarterback at Ohio State. I think you bring him in. I think him with DK would be a really good duo. You would actually use Pat Freiermuth. You get a wide receiver number 2 in there, and you see what Will Howard can do.
Well, Will Howard was a late round draft pick. He wasn't as late of a draft pick as the guy that beat my team on Sunday afternoon, a game that I saw the writing on the wall at the end of the first half. I knew we weren't going to win that game. When you have 2 turnovers and you can't take advantage of it, I thought the defense played well. I did not think they played great. I thought they played well enough, and I thought that this was the bottom line is what my team was all year long, which was penalties at inopportune times, Kevin Batulo's inability to adjust to defensive adjustments in the second half, which is the reason why he is no longer the offensive coordinator, and Nick Sirianni has been very dependent on his coordinators. We know that. I have defended Nick. And by the way, I'm going to defend A.J. Brown. And I don't make a lot of what that scuffle was on the sideline between him and Nick Sirianni that's been going on for the past 3 years. I don't think that this team is really that far off. There's going to be some changes. Dallas Goedert, I don't believe is going to come back. I think he's going to get a payday from somebody else. Nakobe Dean is likely gone. Todd Campbell will probably fill his spot. I think they definitely need to go out and obviously get a second corner. And I just think that, it was very hard this year. Coming off the Super Bowl, and Kevin Batulo really just never felt like he fit as the offensive coordinator. But it does sound like that the Eagles may be open to bringing him back into his old role, which was passing game coordinator. What I want out of a new offensive coordinator is someone who has been a head coach, someone who will not take a job right away, because this will be Jalen Hurts' 7th offensive coordinator in as many seasons.
May I interrupt you and address that point super quick?
Yes.
Because I get it. Jalen Hurts has exploded onto the scene. For God's sakes, he won Super Bowl MVP. And I think if the Eagles had won Super Bowl 57, he would have won Super Bowl MVP. You can make an argument he should have won Super Bowl MVP, even though they lost. But the fact that you said this will be his 7th offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, count them. Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen, Brian Johnson, Kellen Moore, Kevin Batulo, Doug Peterson in his rookie year, and now this offensive coordinator.
Okay. So to a certain degree, I think you're stunting Jalen Hurts' growth and development a little bit. I know he's not a rookie quarterback. I know he's been around for a little while. I get it. But still, we've seen how he, jumped into what many consider to be the elite group with Kellen Moore as his offensive coordinator. And then he takes a huge drop off this season. We saw the
Well-
same thing.
Well, I'll disagree on the huge drop off. I think he took a step back. And by the way, I did not think he played that bad on Sunday. To me, you can make the argument if AJ Brown makes the catch on third down, he may score on that play. There's no safety back. And if Devontae Smith makes the catch on third down before the double team on fourth down, you can make an argument that, again, the Eagles did not play well, but if one of those guys makes a play, they do win the game. And Jalen Hurts, again, did not turn the football over, which is what has been preached to him over and over again. He plays within structure. Do I think they need to run him more? Yes. But did I think this was a bad year for Jalen overall? No. Do I think he missed some of the deep balls that he was kidding in 2024? Absolutely. He was not the same quarterback, but he was not 2023 bad Jalen Hurts.
I'm not saying he dropped all the way to that level, but comparing who Jalen was this season to who he was last season, that feels like a major drop off to me.
Well, actually, if you look at the stats, they're actually pretty identical.
I'm just talking about from what I saw on the field.
I think what you saw on the field was more of a schematic standpoint where Kevin Patul in the first half, again, you go back to the game against Tampa Bay, you go to the game against the Cowboys, you go to the game against Buffalo, you go to even the first half here against the Niners. They were scoring points. They were moving the ball. Jalen Hurts was playing well. Saquon Barkley, the run game was getting involved. And then in the second half, when defenses would make adjustments, they would not adjust back, and they would run the same plays over and over again. The only play they ran on the final drive of the game was a version of four verticals.
It was basically the same play, and teams are like, well, this is easy to defend.
Yes, that's my point, which is why I'm not putting it on Jalen Hurts. I think it's more of a scheme thing.
Excuse me. I'm not saying all the blame should be on Jalen. That's not what I'm getting at. But to a certain degree, the blame has to be on Jalen. But at the same time, when the Eagles have hired an offensive coordinator from within, it has not gone well. But when they hire an offensive coordinator from outside the organization, that's when you saw this offense really take off. Think about it. They brought in Kellen Moore. He wasn't in the organization, and you saw what Jalen and the team did last year. Shane Steichen, I don't think, was with the organization.
No, he came over from the Chargers when Sirianni was hired.
Okay. And again, that just further accentuates my point because you saw, again, the offense take off. But when they brought in or just hired offensive coordinators from within their system, it doesn't work.
The two names that I think should be on my wish list at least, one of them, believe it or not, is former head coach Doug Peterson. I think bringing back Doug Peterson as an offensive coordinator, he knows Jalen Hurts. He worked with him his rookie year. I don't think now that he's had a second head coaching opportunity in Jacksonville, he would get a third. And so I think Doug Peterson would be here for a while. You could stabilize that OC room. And the other one is now former Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken, who I think with his experience with Lamar Jackson, bringing that over with better talent around Jalen Hurts, I would argue that what Lamar's had in Baltimore, specifically at the wide receiver position, I think that would be another good hire with a guy who may get some head coaching interviews, but I don't think is likely to be a head coach.
I'm surprised you didn't say Mike McDaniel.
No, because I don't think Mike McDaniel's scheme would fit Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense, and I think it is very likely Mike McDaniel is either A, the Lions offensive coordinator next year, or B, the Cleveland Browns head coach.
If he is hired as the Cleveland Browns head coach, I will run and hide into my bedroom, hide under my comforter.
Really?
Yes, I do not want him as my head coach. Absolutely not.
Okay. Well, Josh, you were an advocate of the Carolina Panthers all season long, and they took the Rams to the wire on Saturday. Did they prove their NFC South title was legitimate?
Absolutely. They beat the Rams earlier in the regular season. And, it took a great throw from Matthew Stafford to Kobe Parkinson in the closing seconds of regulation for the Rams to beat the Panthers. So, did Bryce miss a couple throws late in that game? Absolutely. And I told you the run game was going to be a big factor for Carolina, and I believe it was.
Well, but I also told you Bryce Young needed to throw early, which he did, and they were moving the football. They did also try to give the game away the whole first half.
So, in that regard, two things I think can be true. So I think you and I were both right to a certain degree anyway. But I believe the Panthers got blown out by the Seattle Seahawks. But still, I think the Panthers showed this season they are legitimate. Yes, they had a losing record, but still, they took the Rams, who many still believe could be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl. We shall see. They have to go against the Chicago Bears this week. That I would get your heart attack medicine ready. But, so I think the Panthers proved they are legit. They got to get some offensive line help because Bryce was under duress a lot of that game. I think they need to bump up their pass rush because it felt like at times Matt Stafford could just sit back there, iron his clothes, put his feet up and have a cup of lemonade. But, they only lost by 3. If they had gotten blown out by like 14 or even 10, I would have said, no, they did not prove their title to be legitimate. But going right to the final seconds, having the lead and being in a position to win that game, only for Stafford to make a perfect throw in the only place really where Kobe Parkinson could make that catch. For me, that proves the Panthers would won this title legitimately.
Now, I will say, I think the game changed on the Puka Nacua drop touchdown pass. That would have been a touchdown in the second quarter. Stafford, it's a Braden stride. It would have been at 24-7. Instead, Carolina comes down. They get a touchdown right before half. And so instead of it being 24-7, it is 17-14. With that being said, I also believe that when Bryce Young threw that touchdown pass to Coker with under 2 minutes left, I thought the Panthers were going to win the game at that point. And Matthew Stafford did a great job driving the Rams down the field, made a perfect throw to Parkinson, as you said. But I also want to preface this with this. The Panthers had a very good season. I thought they were the best team in the NFC South overall in totality this season. I thought that despite their under 500 record, they deserved to win the NFC South. But I will add that in the NFL, and I do say this all the time, that progression is not linear like it typically is in basketball. So to all you Panthers fans out there that think your team is going to get better and you're going to easily win the NFC South next year, that is not necessarily true. I'm very interested to see what Matt Ryan does in Atlanta. Where do they go with their head coach and new general manager? We'll see what Kellen Moore can do with Tyler Shuck and the New Orleans Saints. And we cannot forget about healthy Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay with a new offensive coordinator. So great season of the Panthers. But I would preface this by saying next year, they may not be this good of an opportunity.
I'm a little surprised that the Buccaneers kept Todd Bowles, given how badly he fumbled this season and some of the more recent seasons.
Well, I think that they're blaming that more so on the fact that Baker Mayfield got hurt as opposed to blaming it on Todd Bowles.
Understandable, but to get back to the Panthers, you are right. There is no guarantee that they can get back here. I do think they found their number one wide receiver, and it's not Ted McMillan, it's Jalen Coker. I think
Really?
Well, it seemed like Bryce was going more to Coker down the stretch.
Well, I think that's more of a matchup thing, more so than it is for Jimmy number one wide receiver. I like Coker. I think he's a very good slot receiver. But I do think the best player on the team at that position is Ted McMillan.
I'm not saying that Ted is a bad wide receiver.
No, I know you're not, but I think he's the best overall talent on the team.
And no, I understand what you're saying. Your point is totally valid. It just feels like when Bryce has to have it, he goes to Jalen Coker more often.
This is a good point, too. The Panthers defensive coordinator contract is up, and again, we'll see whether that changes anything or not. So they may take a step back, like you're saying, Grandizer. It was a great game. I know we both thought the Panthers would cover 10.5. I thought that was way too many points that they were giving the Rams, and I thought that they disrespected Carolina. But again, the Panthers tried everything they could, in my opinion, to lose that game in the first half. And when the Rams could not take advantage, that's what made it the real game.
Yeah. A lot of people were expecting the Rams to just run away with this game. And I was like, do you not remember that the Panthers beat the Rams in Carolina just a few weeks ago? Like, I get it. It was cold and wet and rainy conditions in Carolina for that game, and that might have affected the outcome. But still, like, you have to take that into consideration.
Well, speaking of teams that got absolutely mauled, the Los Angeles Chargers. And this was a very defensive struggle for 3 quarters. But by the fourth quarter, you could really tell that the Chargers could not block the Patriots in defensive line. The Patriots were just playing cover zero, cover zero, cover zero. The Chargers could not adjust. To me, it's one of the reasons why they fired offensive coordinator Greg Roman and Justin Herbert now in 12 playoff quarters. You can make an argument he's played well in 2 of them. The first half in that first playoff game against Jacksonville, he was sensational. And after that, it's not been the same. And a lot of people say that, he's a top 6, top 7 overall quarterback in the NFL. I don't know how you can say that when he has consistently not performed in the postseason. You can blame the offensive line all you want, but it's not like the Patriots dominated that game throughout the entire game. There was moments there, in my opinion, at least, for the Chargers to have an opportunity to maybe steal that game in the first half. And I thought Justin Herbert missed some opportunities.
Yeah, I don't put him in the elite category. Honestly, I never really did. I put him in the very good tier, maybe great. Like, because we've seen him have great moments, but is he consistently great? No. Like, he played well coming off of a major injury against Philadelphia, I would say. But then he has a clunker game like what we saw against the Patriots, So that's part of the reason why I can't say he's elite is because of his inconsistency. We generally know what we're going to get from Josh Allen. We generally know what we're going to get from Patrick Mahomes when he's healthy. When Joe Burrow is healthy, we generally know what we're going to get from him. And there's other quarterbacks you could include in that discussion.
Yeah, I know a lot of people say that, he's better than Jalen Hurts, for example. I don't think that's the case. I think Justin Herbert is one of the most talented quarterbacks that we've seen in football. And yes, he did have offensive line issues. But again, in that first set, I thought the Chargers offensive line protected very well. And I thought this game changed early on in the game when the Chargers had the first and goal, from about the 8-yard line off the turnover by Drake May off the fumble. And the Chargers had an opportunity, 4th and goal from the 2-yard line to get a touchdown and take advantage. And they got 0 points out of it. At that point, it just felt like the Chargers never even came close to scoring again. And I thought it was a rare bad coaching job by Jim Harbaugh in the final 5 minutes of that game when it is 16-3 New England and the Chargers seemingly had no urgency on offense. Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico kept saying, why are they substituting? They're letting New England substitute again. They got to hurry. They got to get a touchdown before the 2 morning. And there was just absolutely no urgency to that team.
No. And it's understandable why they fired Greg Roman. You could see the problems all year. But, honestly, if Bo Nix goes out and beats the Buffalo Bills this weekend in the divisional round, I would say that even though he's only played one playoff game, after this, because this will be his second playoff game,
This will be his second playoff game.
Yeah, you're right. And, if he goes out and beats Buffalo, which will be a rematch of last year's wild card round, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct. I forgot about that, but that was the 7-2 matchup in the AFC last year.
Yeah. But this time it'll be in Denver. But my point is this. If Bo Nix goes out and avenges that loss and outplays Josh Allen, I would take Bo Nix over Justin Herbert.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on. I just want to say this. In about week 2 of this season, you told me you would take Bo Nix over Joe Burrow. You're saying now if Bo Nix wins this game, you would take him over Justin Herbert. You just said Justin Herbert wasn't elite. So what you're actually saying is Joe Burrow was never elite by that logic.
Okay. So, well, Joe Burrow has proven me wrong because, he dragged the Cincinnati Bengals kicking and screaming almost to a playoff spot. But, they're the Cincinnati Bengals, so they don't know how to keep their quarterbacks healthy.
In this order, I think the top 4 quarterbacks in the league, regardless if they're hurt, active or not, are Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow. We can pick the order, but I think those are your 4. Then I think Jalen Hurts is up there. I think Drake May has entered in the conversation after the year he's had. I think obviously Matthew Stafford is up there. Sam Darnold, the way he's played this season, has been like a top 10 quarterback. Dak Prescott as well. I think you could make the case for Caleb Williams, especially the way he's played down the stretch. And I think Justin Herbert, to me at least, is now below that tier.
So you did not mention Bo Nix at all in that.
No, and shall we get into it? Shall we talk about it? That Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, they're going to Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. And maybe I messed up the graphic. Maybe you messed up the graphic. Denver actually should be plus 1.5 on the graphic. Wait, did it just flip? Are we sure about that?
I looked on ESPN. Denver is now a 1.5 point favorite.
Let me see, because FanDuel, the last time I checked, I'm doing this live. If that's the case, FanDuel still has Denver as plus 1.5.
On ESPN, I just looked. Denver is listed as a minus 1.5 point favorite.
So it is a pick 'em then, basically either way. And again, I think it just goes to show you that no matter what, the league is not respecting Denver because they're the 1 seed. They're at home. They're coming off a bye. Buffalo barely beat that Jacksonville Jaguars game in a game where Jacksonville really mostly controlled the second half. And if it wasn't for the tush push, you could make a case that Buffalo should have lost that game. And now they're going into Denver, a place that's very hard to play, as only 1.5-point underdogs. To me, it is the matchup of Josh Allen versus Bo Nix, and people not seeing Bo Nix as an elite quarterback. I think Bo Nix is very good, but I think Bo Nix has struggled to play against good teams this season, and he has struggled to play a complete game this season. And I think that could ultimately be the Buffalo Bills' downfall.
You mean the Denver Broncos downfall?
Yes, excuse me, the Denver Bronco downfall.
I do think I understand what you're saying, but that Broncos defense is legit. They can get after the passer. I think they will make life difficult for Josh Allen. And I believe Buffalo just lost Gabe Davis for the season.
They did, and they also lost Shavers. They currently have right now only 3 healthy wide receivers. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and Brandon Cooks on their roster. Look at us. We're both coughing away here.
I know. And that's why I think Denver has the slight advantage going into this game. Kind of like Jacksonville. I thought the Jaguars were the most complete team in the AFC. It feels like Denver, at least in my opinion, is the second most complete team, if you get what I mean. I like their running backs, especially Jaleel McLaughlin. RJ Harvey. There we go. And then, of course, with the defense, you have, the reigning defensive player of the year, Pat Surtain. Good luck throwing against him. And again, you have the new version of the Orange Crush defense. And I like Cortland Sutton. I think he is turning into a number 1 wide receiver. You've got Evan Ingram at tight end. I just think Denver, because of that, it will be a mid-level scoring game. I don't think it'll be like a 34-31 type of game. I could see this being like a 27-24 type of game. Kind of basically like the Jacksonville game, but with Denver coming out on top.
So for the record, DraftKings also has Denver as -1.5. FanDuel has Buffalo at -1.5. So it's a pick'em game. I do think that this game comes down to, again, Josh Allen. I think he's just going to make one more play, because I did feel like Josh, well, like you, I thought the Jaguars had a legitimate case to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And I do feel like that Bills-Jaguars game that we saw this past Sunday could have been the real AFC championship game.
Oh, I agree. Honestly, the Super Bowl I really wanted to see was the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Chicago Bears. Because think about some of the storylines we would have gotten in that game. You got 2 quarterbacks who were drafted number 1 overall, and kind of written off. Caleb, we're giving him a little bit of a pass for last year, but still, people are like, what is going on with Caleb? And Trevor Lawrence, he has all this hype coming out of Clemson, and then it didn't translate into the NFL right away. And then on top of that, you got Liam Cohen, who I believe is a rookie head coach, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he is.
And then Ben Johnson, also in his first year. So I think that would have been a great Super Bowl matchup, because you've got all those storylines. Again, 2 quarterbacks who were drafted number 1 overall. 2 head coaches in their rookie seasons. I thought it would have been a great Super Bowl.
So this game's going to take place on CBS with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. And a fun fact here is that every single one of Buffalo's playoff games since 2020 have been on CBS. The last Buffalo playoff game that was not on CBS was that divisional round game between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen that took place on NBC. That game that featured the 99-yard pick six.
Okay. And I believe the game between Green Bay and Denver this season was on CBS with Nance and Romo.
Yes, it was.
And the game in Denver between Kansas City and Denver was on CBS with Nance and Romo.
And by the way, a lot of people are making fun of Romo, saying he had no idea what he was talking about because he said that the winner of the Jaguars-Bills had a chance to win the Super Bowl. And well, of course they did. No, that's not true. As much as we like the Panthers, nobody thought the Panthers could win the Super Bowl this year. Even if we both thought they maybe could be able to beat the Rams, no one was picking the Panthers to win the Super Bowl. People were legitimately picking Jacksonville and Buffalo to both go to the Super Bowl, and my preseason pick to go to the Super Bowl was the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, my preseason pick, well, both of them are now out, Baltimore and Green Bay.
Let's get to the NFC side where I can hate watch this game because I hate both these teams. Between the Niners and the Seahawks, Kyle Shanahan, there's something about him I don't like. There's something about Brock Purdy I just don't like. There's something about Sam Darnold I just don't like. And so I'm going to be having a grand old time listening to Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt on the call Saturday night, as this is a Fox game. Listen, we saw this matchup 2 weeks ago. We saw the Seahawks absolutely dominate the Niners offense. I think it is really hard for a team to beat a team like that 2 times in a 3-week span. I think the bye week for Seattle may actually hurt them because of the fact they are such a young team. Oftentimes, a veteran team that needs rest, a bye is good for them. A young team that's used to playing, a bye sometimes is not good for them. And interestingly enough, in the wild card round, we saw teams like the Packers, like the Eagles, even teams like those would be the main two, I guess. The Packers and Eagles who rested their starters in week 18 and then lost, in the wild card round. So we'll see. I think it's a very close game. I would definitely take the points here with the Niners, but I do think the Seahawks don't need to win the game.
Seattle lost to San Francisco in Seattle back in week 1. I think the score was like 17-13. So it's interesting that we're already getting round 3 just a couple weeks after they played each other for the number 1 seed and the division title in week 18. And as you said, Seattle's defense absolutely shut down San Francisco. And now with George Kittle out, even more of the focus is going to be on Christian McCaffrey in this game. I think that makes the task a lot easier for Seattle because as we saw, this offense runs as Christian McCaffrey goes. If you can shut down Christian McCaffrey, you basically shut down the 49ers offense.
Yeah, and, Philly, we really did, for the most part, shut down San Francisco in the running game. It was more of McCaffrey in the passing game. And then out of nowhere, Demarcus Robinson, the former Chief, the former Ram, had a big play. It wasn't even Jawan Jennings who really played that great. Again, it was more Robinson. And now they're probably going to get Ricky Pearsall back for this game. I think it's a very interesting. I think it's a low-scoring game, but I do think it's going to be really tough for San Francisco to go in there and win outright.
We've seen how loud Lumen Field gets when it's playoff time. I don't know how San Francisco can do it, but we've seen them go on the road and win games we didn't expect them to. Hell, I didn't expect them to go into Philadelphia and beat the Eagles, but that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, I will say this right here and right now. If one of these two teams represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, I will not be a happy person.
Fair enough.
All right, let's get to the defensive battle that's incoming between the Houston Texans and the New England Patriots, because 14 points may be enough to win this one.
You're honestly right. If Houston's offense could just catch up to their defense, I would view them more as legitimate Super Bowl contenders, because that defense is absolutely legit, and they can cause absolute havoc. And yes, I like Drake May. I've been saying he should be number one in terms of MVP all season, but we saw Myles Garrett by himself cause havoc against the Patriots.
He had 5 sacks in that game.
Yes, and now you've got
Daniel Hunter and Will Anderson both coming off that edge. And by the way, we saw Houston's defense last night completely obliterate the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we saw a Charger defense, which is not getting a lot of pressure, get 5 sacks on Drake May and that New England Patriots offense. I've been saying all week that going into last night, the Patriots should have rooted hard for the Houston Texans, because I do think it's going to be very difficult for the New England Patriots to move the ball on this team. I think it's going to come down to turnovers. And as much as I like Drake May and the Patriots, as much as a good season I think they have, I think the Houston Texans, if they can run the football, if they can play keep away, Nico Collins, though, is going to be the big one. If he does not play in this game because of that concussion, where is the offense going to come from if you are the Houston Texans?
I do like this comment by Grandizer. He says, Josh roots for the Texans, ex-Browns players there. No, I don't root for the Texans.
Yeah, how about this? 6-3 game. I mean, last night the Pittsburgh game felt like it was going to end 9-7. The Patriots Chargers game felt that way for a while. I would say somewhere between like 17-13, 14-13, 14-10, I think is on the board.
Yeah. I do think the Patriots have a bit of an edge in this game because Vrabel is their head coach. He's been there, done that. Granted, it didn't go well with him, in Tennessee. But in 2019, he got them to the AFC Championship, and they had the Kansas City Chiefs on the ropes, at least for maybe the first half of the game. Obviously,
I would say the first quarter, but
fair enough.
Yeah. And you know what else? In a year where, and I talk about this all the time, right? In the NFC, 3 out of the 4 remaining coaches are offensive. The only defensive remaining coach is Mike McDonald. But this year has been a different year in the NFL. It's been the year of unpredictability. It's been the year of the defensive coach. In the AFC right now, the only offensive head coach remaining is Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos. And I think that this Houston Texans team has the best defense left out of anybody. I do think there is a scenario where the Texans not only make the Super Bowl, but they win it.
Think about this for a second. If the Houston Texans win against New England and Buffalo beats Denver, the AFC Championship game would be in Houston, and it would be a rematch of that Thursday night game.
In which the Texans absolutely took apart Buffalo's offensive line.
And that's exactly where I was going. So I'm not just going to dismiss that as a possibility. I think
I agree with you. Like I'm looking at this line, 3 points I think is too much. I think I'm going to take the Houston side of it. New England may win by 3, but I feel pretty safe in saying I think Houston's the play.
I will say this. The NFC, in terms of like the games themselves, I would say the NFC is probably the better conference in terms of playoff teams remaining, but the more intriguing games are in the AFC side, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
you know what's going to be weird this year is on Saturday is the CBS and the Fox game. On Sunday is the ESPN and the NBC game. So we're not going to see CBS and Fox on Sunday at all, which is just going to feel weird to me.
Yeah. And what's even stranger is usually whoever is broadcasting the Super Bowl doesn't debut their new score bug until the Super Bowl. But we already got to see what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Because they used it for the Chargers-Patriots game, which is
Yeah.
highly unusual.
By the way, it's very similar to the old one. I couldn't even tell the difference.
I mean, the old one was that like circle where you had the two low. It was just like that, half circle. But no, getting back to this game, I'm looking at New England in terms of their offense. I know that a lot of the passing game is going to go to Stephon Diggs.
Former Texan, by the way.
Yes. But I think they should actually utilize Hunter Henry more in this game.
I was going to say, I think Keyshawn Booty's got to be a big play down the field. I think they have to find a way because I think Derek Stingley is going to probably take Stephon Diggs. They have to find a way to get other wide receivers, whether it's Pop Douglas or Keyshawn Booty, the ball out in open space, maybe even Travion Henderson in the passing game, along with Hunter Henry, because we know Hunter Henry is going to be good. I'm not disputing that point. What I'm saying is which other of the young players that we don't expect is going to have to step up.
And that's why I think you first establish the passing game with a veteran like Hunter Henry, and then you get some of the young guys involved.
I just think this game could come down to Will Anderson or Danielle Hunter beating a rookie Will Campbell and stripping Drake May.
You very well could be right. And I like this quarterback matchup too, because Drake May and CJ Stroud, like we saw what CJ could do at Ohio State, and we were all expecting big things from him. And, you know, you and I had the argument after the Cincinnati game of should he be in the MVP conversation or not? And we're having the same type of discussion with Drake May, and he's only in his second year. I do think CJ is a bit of a victim of his own success based on what he did in his rookie season. Kind of like what happened with Jaden Daniels. Although with Jaden, it's not necessarily his fault because he suffered those injuries, but it's the same type of situation, if you will.
Well, as we say here on the graphic, it'll come down to the final possession. The Rams are taking on the Chicago Bears in Chicago, and the Bears at home are underdogs by 3.5. And so to me, when it comes down to this game, I think, the Bears, they have lived and died on second half comebacks. They were behind 21-3 against the Green Bay Packers early on. That game Saturday night was very reminiscent of the Week 16 game in Chicago where the Bears made that second half comeback. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against this Rams team. I think Sean McVay is going to have a very good game plan planned against the Bears. I think the Bears, they have to come out fast. They have to score. What's interesting is, last week on the show, we had both said that if the Bears had won the toss, they should receive the ball. They did so against Green Bay. They got a field goal out of it. They're going to have to score more points than 3, I believe, in the first half to beat this Rams team because, again, I think Sean McVay is going to come out. I think they're going to establish a good passing game. I think the Bears' best hope is that the Rams maybe struggle because there could be some participation issues potentially early or later on in the game.
I could see this being like a 37-17 34 type of game. When you got the likes of Devontae, Puka, Kyron Williams, I forget the other running back the Rams have on their roster at the moment.
Blake Corum.
Yes, Blake Corum. Thank you. And you've got Tyler Higbee. I think he's still the tight end for the Rams, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
he's out for the year, so they have Parkinson, I believe.
Oh, yeah. You're right. My bad. And then with the Bears, you got DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Colston Loveland, who has become.
Come on. Yep, absolutely.
Yep. Colston Loveland, you and I have talked about how if you want to be a legit team in the NFL, you got to have a number one wide receiver. The Bears do. He just so happens to play tight end.
Grandizer saying Higbee is back. He did play in the last game. Okay, thank you, Grandizer. I appreciate that comment. But I don't think the score is going to allow for this thing to be 34-31. I think it's going to be like 24-21. I think the weather's going to play a factor in it. And I just worry that with all these comebacks by the Rams, by the Bears, with their 6 comebacks under 2 minutes left, eventually their luck is going to run out. And as much as I am rooting for the Bears to get to the Super Bowl on the NFC side, I do think it ends here.
If the Bears can figure it out with their defense, they are legit Super Bowl contenders. I think they are way too reliant on takeaways.
Yes. And also, they don't, a lot like Carolina, they do not get pressure over the quarterback, and they're going to have to win this game.
Yes. If the Rams allow the Bears to figure it out defensively, look out. That could really cause problems for the Rams.
I think, again, very similar to the game against Green Bay, the Bears have to get the ball first. They have to score relatively quickly, keep the crowd engaged. What did you think of Ben Johnson bypassing all those punts at midfield early on in the game and going for it?
That's been his mentality all season. And I think the players have fully bought in on it. So it made sense with who he is and who he has been. But were they necessarily the right calls in those situations? No, but I'm not going to disagree with it because that's how he's played it all season.
Well, especially the one early on where they had the crossing routes and it was batted down. Luther Burton was wide open. You had the right play call against man coverage. You had the right scheme. They just couldn't execute. They're going to have to find a way to block Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. They're also on a backup left tackle. Their rookie left tackle got hurt in that game on Saturday. I do find it interesting that both of these teams who played on Saturday are going to play on Sunday, where the Niners who played on Sunday now have to play on Saturday. Doesn't seem very fair to me, but nonetheless, that's where we're at.
I know. Because think about it, like the 49ers, they played on Monday Night Football against Indy, and then they get Sunday night against the Bears, and then they have to turn around and play Saturday night against Seattle.
So we have a comment here that basically says, which one team are we rooting for to win the Super Bowl? Which teams do we hope to lose this weekend? I'm going to answer it this way as we wrap up our divisional round preview. I am rooting for a Bills-Bears Super Bowl. I do not think it's going to happen. I think the most likely Super Bowl right now that I see is either the Rams or the Seahawks against either the Bills or the Texans. That's me personally. Do you have a rooting interest, or are you rooting for a particular matchup now that your Jacksonville-Chicago Super Bowl is no longer happening?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I really wanted Jacksonville-Chicago. As I illustrated all those storylines, I would love to see Seattle back in the Super Bowl. Of course, they are my favorite team from the NFC. I have been a longtime Seahawks fan. But so in terms of who's the one team I don't want in the Super Bowl, that would be the LA Rams. I do not like them at all. I think Stan Kroenke is a piece of crap because he completely screwed over the city of St. Louis. So I would love to see Seahawks Bills in the Super Bowl. But the Super Bowl matchup I don't want to see would be either Texans Rams or Texans 49ers. I don't like the 49ers, and I just think Texans 49ers, I think Houston would just blow out San Francisco, and it would not be fun to watch.
Yeah, we both agree on San Francisco. I do think this has been the year of new blood, right? Like Chicago, Buffalo, Houston,
Jacksonville.
Like the Rams have won a Super Bowl recently. San Francisco's been to a couple of Super Bowls recently. Seattle, I know it's a new decade, but they're relatively fresh. I still think in people's mind. New England has won championships before. I do think if there's a year where it's like we could get Texans versus Bears. Like, I think this could be that year.
Yeah. And to further enhance why I wanted Jacksonville versus Chicago, Jacksonville is one of 4 teams who have never been to the Super Bowl, alongside the Browns, the Texans, and the Lions. And the Bears haven't won a Super Bowl since 1985, and they haven't been to the Super Bowl since 2006, when they, of course, lost to Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts.
Well, Josh, there is one game left in the college football season. It will feature the glory franchise of the Miami Hurricanes against a team who before this season only had 2 winning seasons in the entire history of their program in Kurt Zanetti, Fernando Mendoza, and the Indiana Hoosiers. After one of the college football semifinal games was an all-time classic, and one of them was a complete beatdown.
Yeah. That Oregon-Indiana rematch did not live up to the hype at all.
It felt over on the first play after Dante Moore felt the pick six. It felt like from there Indiana was just going to take over, and Oregon did get back in the game somewhat, but the turnovers, especially the fumbles, is what really led to the acceleration of that game not being close.
Yes. And it'll be interesting to see what the crowd is like for this game, because it is being played at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, which just so happens to be the home stadium for the Miami Hurricanes. But as we've seen, the Indiana crowd travels well. So it'll be interesting to see what the crowd split is like for this game. Indiana, from what I saw, is like at least a touchdown favorite.
Yeah, I saw 7.5 around there. Listen, Miami's identity with Mario Cristobal has been, we're going to be more physical than you. We're going to beat you up in the offensive line, defensive line. We're going to run the football. And to me, the story of this game is the story of the 2 different quarterbacks. Carson Beck was a 2-time national champion. He was projected earlier in his career at Georgia to potentially be a first-round pick. He then fell off. He obviously had a transfer here to Miami. Fernando Mendoza is a Heisman winner. He's easily projected to be the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. How do the 2 chips on each of these guys' shoulders that are very different, how can they tell a similar story? Kurt Zanetti has won everywhere he's been. Mario Cristobal has won everywhere he's been. Which one of these coaches is finally going to break through? And we'll have our answer this coming Monday night.
Yeah, and we'll see if this is the last year of the 12-team playoff, because I've heard there's that if the Big Ten and SEC can come to an agreement, we could be expanding to 16 teams as soon as next year. And in the coming years, it would expand to 24 teams.
Yeah, I think it's a topic that next week or in the coming weeks, you can really dive into the why on that. And I do think the fact that the College Football National Championship is now taking place on MLK Day, and the fact that we are now through the NFL divisional round, I do think it does dilute a little bit the CFP because the focus is not on the CFP. We talked about this last year when it was Ohio State Notre Dame. At this point, to me, the College Football National Championship is so late in the season. We have just spent an hour and so change on the NFL. Like, no one is really talking about this game because the forefront is about the NFL playoffs. I think the CFP National Championship needs to move permanently to the Rose Bowl, and it needs to be played on New Year's Day.
I also think that part of the problem is that it's on a Monday night. I think that's also part of the problem with the March Madness and the National Championship. By the way, I was saving up all my money to go to Indianapolis for the 2026 Men's Final Four. Unfortunately, that is not happening anymore. But I always tune in for the National Championship. But I hate that it's on a Monday night. I hate it. Like, that's what's great about the Super Bowl. It's on a Sunday, which is when NFL football is supposed to happen. College football is supposed to happen on a Saturday. If you do the College Football National Championship on a Saturday, I think more people would tune in because that's when college football is supposed to happen.
Well, again, they'd either have to do that prior to. Well, the problem is you can't really do it on Saturday because you have Week 17 and Week 18 now in the NFL that are playing Saturday games. So you pretty much would have to do it either like next weekend, right before the conference championship games, or you have to do it like prior to Christmas.
Yeah. So I understand why they do it on Mondays. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. But in terms of this game, I do like Miami's defensive line with Ruben Bain. I do think maybe they can get after Fernando Mendoza. I don't trust Indiana's offensive line fully. I don't think they've really been tested the way they're going to be against Miami. Because as you said, Miami is going to bring that physicality, which honestly Indiana has not seen yet this season.
And Miami had to do it the hard way. They had to go for Ohio State. They had to go for Ole Miss. They had to go through Texas A&M. Like, it was, and they played all three different games. Texas A&M was 10-3. Ohio State was like 24-17, something like that. The Ole Miss game was 38-35, something like that. So they had to win in different ways. My one worry for Miami would be if Carson Beck turns the football over and this thing gets away from them early. They have to stay within the game because if they get behind early, I'm not saying it's going to be TCU, Georgia bad, but I think it could be Indiana, Oregon bad if Miami does not stay in the game early.
You know what's interesting? You mentioned how Carson Beck transferred from Georgia. Don't forget, Fernando Mendoza is also a transfer quarterback. He started at Cal.
Yeah, no, you're right. And again, Kurt Zanetti, Mario Cristobal, they've done a good job building these programs. The question to me is going to be which team / which quarterback can make big plays and don't turn the football over.
Which, honestly, I feel like that's going to be Indiana.
Yes, I would agree. Now, again, I do think Indiana more than likely covers the spread, but I think if Miami can get pressure on Mendoza, the way you're saying, this could be a very close game. I don't think there is a 0% chance Miami loses this game. Like, I think they could win it.
Think about this. I don't think this is a story a lot of people are talking about. If the SEC has not been in the national championship since
Georgia won it
in 2022.
Yes.
That's insane. And
Well, not really with the level of the NIL and the transfer portal coming in. The Big Ten has now become easily the best conference in college football.
and think about this. Like, we had Michigan win it in 2023. We had Ohio State win it in 2024. And now you're telling me Indiana might be able to win it? Like, if I would have told you Indiana would be in a position to win a national championship just a couple of years ago, you would have looked at me like I was nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to the power of Kurt Zanetti and what he's done. And if the Big Ten does have 3 different national champions, well, that means your Penn State Nifty Lions and Matt Campbell are coming next year.
Very well could be. They brought it over the quarterback from Iowa State. I forget Rocco Becht. So we'll see.
Who obviously played with Campbell, of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have some NBA news to get to because Trae Young is the first person in the history of mankind to request to be traded to the Washington Wizards.
Yeah. And the Hawks didn't get any picks in return.
No, they got an old CJ McCollum and they got one other player. I'm forgetting his name right now, but that's
Corey
it.
Kispert.
Thank you.
Like, that's hilarious. He's going from constantly being in the play-in tournament to, well, what, being in the lottery?
Yeah, and here's the thing: Trae Young and people. I don't know if you remember this. Trae Young, when he was drafted, was technically drafted because the NBA rules are dumb, and I don't understand why they do this. But Trae Young was technically drafted by the Dallas Mavericks, and he was then traded to the Atlanta Hawks for Luka Doncic.
Yes. Donovan Mitchell went through the same thing. Remember? He was drafted by the Denver Nuggets and then traded to the Utah Jazz.
Well, technically, Kobe Bryant was as well. Remember the Hornets and the Lakers back in the day as well. But Trae Young, early on in Atlanta, he had a very good career. He obviously got the Hawks to that Eastern Conference Final in 2021. But the last couple of years been dealt with injuries. The Hawks have not been as good of a team as they were. He's been a liability on the defensive end. And it has felt like this year has been more stat padding than anything. And it does feel like he went to the Wizards to just do more stat padding.
Yeah. I would have loved to have seen him go to the Minnesota Timberwolves alongside Ant and Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels. I think that would put them right up there as legitimate title contenders. But the likelihood was that wasn't going to happen. The fact that he actually wanted to go to Washington is hilarious, though.
Well, I guess the general manager there used to have be the GM in Atlanta, so there's a mutual connection there. And for the Wizards, like, listen, I was there at Capital One Arena in December to watch that Cavs Wizards game. It was all Cleveland Cavaliers fans. And when I mean all, I pretty much mean all. If you want to sell tickets for fans to go see the Wizards, that's it. I mean, Trae Young is one of those fun players to watch in the NBA when he is healthy.
Yeah. But who else do the Wizards have? Nobody.
I mean, Star's been okay. But obviously they're not going anywhere because they don't have a plan to build. And I've always said the Wizards are the most irrelevant franchise in all of sports.
I think I saw Bradley Beal was upset that the Wizards gave Trae Young number 3 because he's like, they're gonna retire my jersey. It's gonna be up in the rafters.
Yeah. I mean, the Wizards are just a franchise that no one cares about, but Trae Young now is going to be forgotten about. Again, he made pretty good money in his career. Former, multi-time All-Star. He's a really good player. He can put up a lot of points, but he's not going to lead you to win a championship because I don't think he could be your number 1 best player.
No. And the fact that the Hawks didn't get any draft picks in this trade just is kind of pathetic. Like,
Well, Atlanta does have some young pieces that they can build around.
yeah, I know, but still, like, you're trading with the Wizards. You know they have draft picks, and you don't get any for a franchise cornerstone in Trae Young.
Well, you can make a
Seriously?
case if you're a Hawks fan that he was not a franchise cornerstone. He was a piece. He wasn't the cornerstone of their franchise.
I guess so.
You know, it feels like every year the Heat, the Hawks, and sometimes Orlando are like circling that playing tournament.
Yeah. Which it sounds like the Heat are in on trying to get John Morant, which
That would be interesting. You know, obviously, John Moran, very talented player. He can jump out of the building, but he's lost his shooting ability. And Memphis is just not going anywhere with him. It's time for him to get a new change of scenery. But I don't know how much of a difference he's going to make because he's basically turned into Russell Westbrook. Great athletic ability. He can't shoot.
yeah. By the way, big time game on tonight. The new rivalry, really, in the Western Conference. San Antonio leads the regular season series 3-0, and they still have 2 games left against each other. 8 o'clock Eastern.
Wait, why 2?
Yeah, they play tonight in Oklahoma City. And
then, because they played in that stupid NBA Cup. Okay, go on.
Yes. San Antonio is 3-0 against Oklahoma City. Think about this for a second. San Antonio is 3-0 against the reigning defending NBA champion Oklahoma City Thunder, yet they got swept by the Cleveland Cavaliers, who just lost to the damn Utah Jazz, who lost by 55.
Well, in one of those games in Cleveland, Wemby did not play, so.
Yes. But even still, like, the fact that the Spurs are 3-0 against the Thunder, yet they got swept by the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are a very mid-level team. They are not.
We talked about that last week. Go check it out.
Yeah, we are not a championship contender. If we're losing to the damn Utah Jazz, by the way, we were favored by 12.5.
Yeah. We're going to be a playing team again.
Yay. But no, getting back to this, interestingly, OKC is a 9.5-point favorite, and yet Wemby is playing. I haven't seen anything that says he's not. So the fact that Oklahoma City is favored by that much is interesting because, again, San Antonio is 3-0 against OKC, and they won the last game on Christmas 117-102, and just 2 days prior in San Antonio, they blew out the Thunder 130-110.
Yeah, going into the year, one of my predictions was that the Thunder were going to break the Golden State Warriors record and go 74-8. I think I got that one wrong.
Yeah, right now they're 33-7.
Yeah. So, you know, these are probably, again, I think Denver's in that conversation when Nikola Jokic gets back. Houston, we'll see about them, but I think these are probably the 2 best teams in the West.
I would say these are probably the best 2 teams in the league right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you because I don't trust JB Bickerstaff over there in Detroit.
But I will say this, given how we're playing this season, maybe JB was not the problem.
That's interesting, and I don't want to dive down that rabbit hole right now. A rabbit hole I do want to dive down is a shock that happened in the world of professional wrestling this past Friday because he prayed for it, and it happened. And he sent Cody Rhodes straight to hell because Drew McIntyre is the WWE Champion in WWE for the first time in what feels like a year and a half. Actually did something good, did something unpredictable, made the road to WrestleMania unpredictable, and Drew McIntyre has been crowned the new WWE champion.
Yes, but the one thing I didn't like about it is, oh my God, it's a hooded figure. Oh my
Again.
God. Like, can't we come up with something different? Like,
Yeah, I think wrestling wants masked wrestlers. I don't know why.
it's like, oh my God, it's a hooded figure. Oh, it's Austin Theory. Oh my God, it's a hooded figure. Oh, it's Jacob Fatu.
Yeah,
Like,
and so, but this now opens up the door for the Royal Rumble because there are so many possibilities. They're doing 4 matches that will lead to a fatal 4-way at Saturday night's main event. I mean, you could have Drew McIntyre versus Ilya Dragunov. You could have Drew McIntyre versus Sami Zayn. You could have Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton. You could have in the Royal Rumble match itself, Braun Breaker, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, Brock Lesnar. There's so many different possibilities. I already mentioned you could do Drew McIntyre versus Sami Zayn at the Royal Rumble. You could have Sami Zayn be in the Royal Rumble match itself, win it, and have Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania.
that's the match I want, personally. I want Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. I think those two have so much history together. And when they've been in the ring, I mean, think back to that Saturday night's main event match. I thought it was really good. I think they have excellent in-ring chemistry. I think they would tell a fantastic story leading into WrestleMania. That really is the match I would like. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the winner of that fatal 4-way will face Drew McIntyre at the Royal Rumble.
Yes, which, by the way, there is a reason why WWE has not officially announced the Royal Rumble was on January 31st yet. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Royal Rumble may be actually moved back because they're building a stadium for it in Saudi Arabia, and it may not be done in time.
Yeah, I heard about this, which is hilarious. But I don't think Seth is going to be in the Royal Rumble. It sounds like he's going to be out longer with his shoulder injury.
I mean, do we trust him? That's the thing. And here's the other thing. The fact now that CM Punk is still the world champion, like on the Raw side, this is why I'm so happy Cody lost the title. Theoretically, you could do Punk and Breaker rematch. You could do Punk versus Cody. You could do Punk versus Breaker versus Rollins. You could do Punk versus Roman Reigns. You could do Punk versus Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. Like, Drew winning the championship has opened up so many more opportunities, not only on the SmackDown side, but on the Raw side. And Drew, like you said, they could do Drew versus Sami Zayn at WrestleMania, yes. But Drew doesn't even have to be champion going into WrestleMania. He could drop the belt right back to Cody Rhodes at the Elimination Chamber, and you could still do Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre versus Jacob Fatu, and whatever you want to do on the Raw side. There are so many more possibilities now.
I don't want him to drop the belt right back to Cody. We've seen Cody walk into WrestleMania as the champion the last couple of years. I want something different. I want to see somebody else walk into Mania as the champion. I do think it's interesting that, like, if you remember, we all thought it was Drew McIntyre who attacked Jacob Fatu in that backstage segment months back. And yet, when he first came into the cage, he did go after Drew, but then he went ham against Cody. So maybe it was actually Cody who launched that attack, and maybe that's the match you do at WrestleMania, Cody versus Jacob Fatu.
For me, if you're going to do Cody versus Fatu and then Drew versus Sami, what do you do with Roman?
I don't know, because from all reports I've read, they're scrapping Cody versus Roman 3.
Well, again, and that report was made by Mr. Dave Belcher, who said well, I thought it was going to be Cody versus Roman. Now it may not, but I mean, it's still good. I mean, I don't know. Plans change. I mean, I think it could, but I don't think it's going to. I don't know. It's exactly the words that came out of that man's mouth. So, I still think it's on the table. I think WWE likes to leak stuff purposely to get not only fans that are not fans of the product, but to get people like you and me on the internet riled up. As does Tony Khan and AEW. It's what we do. We're addicted to reading wrestling rumors and dirt sheets, even though half the time they don't end up being true. I just like I don't know because I think the plan's gonna be you get Seth Rollins back. It does feel like to me like Seth Rollins versus CM Punk versus Braun Breaker is on the table. Now, if Braun Breaker would have won the world title, you could have did Breaker versus Rollins, Sammy versus Drew, Cody versus Fatu, and then even Roman Reigns against CM Punk in a non-title match. But to me, I still think you can go with Drew versus Jacob Fatu, Cody Roman night 2, and Punk Rollins Breaker night 1.
My favorite, the match I really want is Drew versus Sammy. Again, I just think they have great in-ring chemistry, and I think the story would be fantastic.
Here's the thing, though. And I struggled with this when Cody Rhodes won the world championship against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. Remember, I was advocating for Roman to retain because I said, what's next for Cody Rhodes? The chase is always better than when you're the champion. I think for Sami Zayn, the chase will be better than when he is actually champion. And I'll be honest with you, I think the best direction for Sami Zayn would be to have him win the number 1 contender match in Montreal at Saturday Night's main event, face Drew at the Royal Rumble, have Sami Zayn lose that match, and have Sami Zayn turn heel.
Well, okay. I never said Sammy should win the match at WrestleMania.
Oh, if Sammy's going to WrestleMania, he's winning the match.
I was just saying that's the match I want to see.
It's very similar to Jey Uso. Remember, we talked about this with Jey Uso and Gunther at WrestleMania. We both had said you can't have Jey lose. If Sammy wins the Rumble, Sammy can't lose at WrestleMania.
Yeah. By the way, you brought up the main event for Raw last week. That was an overbooked mess. Oh my God.
I don't know how you can say it was overbooked when there was only about 30 seconds of interference.
Honestly, that whole show was an overbooked mess. I did not like it at all. I was looking forward to watching it, which is very surprising because it was the Stranger Things crossover. And all they did was, here's a cool Stranger Things set design, and we're going to do the chapters. I thought, I was like, that's it? Really? Like, no Stranger Things themed match, no Stranger Things vignettes or anything. Like, nah.
Well, then of course, in what as you like to say, in our neck of the woods, down in that All Elite Wrestling Company, John Moxley is now a babyface. MJF is the current world champion.
By the way, I'm loving MJF as the world champion because he's got Bandito coming after him this Wednesday. They're doing that match at Maximum Carnage. He's got Kenny Omega coming after him. He's got Swerve coming after him. He's got Hangman coming after him. Darby wants a piece of him. I like it when a lot of people are coming after the world championship. I don't feel that same thing over in WWE. Like,
I feel it now with Drew and Punk, both of them. I mean, Punk's facing Finn Balor next week in Belfast.
No, which I appreciate that. But it doesn't feel like you got a lot of people really gunning for the world championship right now. Like, it feels like at times they're trying to almost. Oh, I'm a huge fan of Stranger Things. I just suck at actually sitting down and watching it. I still have 3 episodes left of season 4.
I have not seen a single episode, for the record.
It is so good. It's just hard for me to sit down and watch it, and
there's so much sports going on. I mean, it's very hard, especially this time of year. Usually, when the football season ends, when I start diving into shows.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have a lot to talk about, though. We got our wrestling vixen. Next week we're gonna obviously talk about the end of the college football season. We'll preview the AFC and NFC championship games. So make sure you stay with us here on Championship Rings, as we will try to desperately recover from whatever the hell illness is out there in the world. Make sure you guys stay healthy and stay safe out there, because this thing is nasty.
Yes, it is.
And with that, we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy, and we'll see you guys next week on Championship Rings.
Bye-bye.